Hey guys, happy Wednesday with my coffee friends. Had some meetings this morning, so we're a little later in the day, but thank you for joining in. I'm gonna dive in. I know last week I did my life video, so I thought, or my life cover of Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral. So I thought maybe I'll just do all the life covers for a few weeks in a row. So this is not Winston Churchill. This is Churchill's funeral Winston Churchill from February 5th, 1965 was when this cover was. So it's pretty cool, huh? And these are the whole magazine, but it's kind of fun to have. Hey, good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. So I received in the mail yesterday a new book. So a fellow funeral director, J. Kevin Watts, just released his book, Dead Serious, My Life as a Funeral Director. So this is a new book out there. I know some of you kind of eat up every single thing you can read, watch, take in when it comes to funeral directors. So this is new and out on the market. So check it out, look for it. Hey, Chloe. And comes with a personalized toe tag bookmark for you. So I will be reading it, doing an interview hopefully with Kevin, and giving my review at some point. I need to read it though. Maybe this will be a good, I don't know if I don't get it done before, maybe a spring break sort of adventure for me. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Post your questions. So this, I almost don't even want to ask the first questions when I posted on last week's video, guys. Can a body actually set up? So if any of you have watched me ever, what is the answer? No, a body cannot set up. No, people do not set up in a casket. No, you don't have a third cousin who has a buddy, who has an uncle, who once worked at a funeral home. It's all body set up. No, doesn't happen. Chloe needs a toe tag. Oh my gosh, for a bookmark. We can just send her a toe tag bookmark also, so she could have. So I had a woman ask, she wants to be cremated and wondered if she's going to need her breast implants removed. So it is something that some crematories are doing, is requiring that, along with pacemakers, that breast implants, if they are made of specific items, are removed, because the plastic or the items that are in it, when they melt down, just like if we had a styrofoam head block in the casket, when that melts down, it's going to just melt out and stick within the retort in the kind of concrete-ish type material, and it's going to just make a mess, and it's not easily cleaned out. So same thing with some breast implants. When they melt down, they don't burn up like other materials, and so they're going to melt down out into the retort and cause a mess. So some crematories have begun removing or requiring that breast implants are removed. So how much on average does someone have to spend to become a funeral director and embalmer? You're going to have to price out classes and schooling. The thing is that just like if you went to school to be any vocation, you could take community ed classes or community college classes, or you could take four-year degree classes. You know, if you went to a university and took your prereqs, it's going to be different than a community college. If you did an online program, it may be different than an in-seat program. You're going to have to factor in your housing, your books, everything. So no way I can give you a price. You'll have to call, and you're going to have to kind of do it all out for yourself. Do you have to have a license to sell pre-arrangements? You need a license to sell insurance, but you do not have to have a license to set up trusts. That is not something you have to have a license for in most states. So you can do pre-arranging and set up trusts, but a lot of places have insurance, which I don't have an insurance license, but I have done thousands of pre-needs, but they've all been either trusts or just information pre-arranging. So St. Louis Crematory Inc. requires breast implants and other implants to be removed. what about the spinal column stimulator? Does that need to be removed like a pacemaker? If there's batteries that we can get to, we would remove batteries from devices if it's external. If it's internal, there is some debate on different things, and they're coming up with new things that do need to be removed. But as of right now, pacemakers are the one thing we know 100% needs to be done. I don't recommend a specific school over another. You have to find the one that matches up for you. Average cost of a funeral. There's no average cost. A funeral is the action of holding an event to commemorate a life. So you could do a direct cremation and still have a funeral. You could have the person embalmed, buy a bronze casket, hire a choir, and release doves, and that is still a funeral. So there's no average price. Defining the word funeral is something that you would have to do for yourself and what that looks like before you could get a price on it. My daughter was cremated, and I was worried I didn't get all of her cremated remains. Can you assure me that I did? No, you will never get 100% of someone's cremated remains. There is transfer along the process, so you are always going to lose a little residual amount of that deceased, and you may also get a little residual amount of other deceased's contaminated in along the way. The retort surface is porous. It's not smooth and slick, so there's little pockets, kind of like in a driveway or in a roadway, that little grains can get in, and so old ones may stay, and part of your loved one may stay in there when they're, brushed out. Then in the container they're placed in, some of the residual may stick, just like dust and things do. It may stick. So everywhere along the step, you may lose little pieces, but you're going to get back the majority, a large percentage of your loved one. Illinois, you must do an apprenticeship for an embalming. Yes, when you die, you will poop, you will pee. Hey, Shauna, girl, why aren't you working? But thank you for checking in on me. I have an insurance license in Florida and have sold burial insurance. Yes. Do you have to go back for training? I'm not sure what that means. Oh, Kate, baby, I'm so glad your mom's service was so nice. I'm so glad. So Kate's mom has been failing, and so she's been just keeping me posted through email when she died, and just kind of making arrangements. And so it's good that everything went smoothly. How do I want to be prepared when I die? I think somebody asks me this every week. As of right now, I like a natural burial, but it's really not about me. It's about my family and what they want. So it's not about really what I want at all. My friend passed over the summer, and her mom kept a small vial of her cremated remains in her purse, and someone broke in her car and stole her purse. So I was just talking about this with Modern Mortician, which is Melissa, and how we constantly are seeing people who, and you see it on Facebook, people are posting, hey, I lost my necklace that had my loved one's cremated remains. Hey, I lost the thumbprint necklace. Hey, I lost this. Hey, I lost that. I always am telling family, if they want to buy cremation jewelry, how often do you lose your jewelry? How are you going to feel if you lose your loved one's cremated remains? Because it can happen. It happens all the time. The thumbprint jewelry can be replaced because you can order more because they have it on file, but you can't replace a part of the person if you lose them. And I'm not anti-cremation jewelry by any means, but I want people to always think about it beforehand, because most people don't think about that. But yeah, that's horrible. It's just, you need to keep them in a safe space, at home or cemetery, somewhere that they're not getting stolen, they're not getting lost, just keeping them safe. So some states have continuing ed. We don't require continuing education here in Michigan, but some states require so many hours. Yes, you can mail cremated remains. There's a very specific way you have to mail them, though. And there's specific tape that you use around it that says cremated remains. They have to be signed for upon delivery. So there's a very specific way that we have to mail cremated remains. But yes, they're mailed all the time. Yeah, so the whole tattoo artists putting cremated remains in ink and then doing a tattoo with them. There are some tattoo artists who will do that. Not everyone will, because it comes into a almost contamination gray area that you're placing something in the ink. So if there is a reaction and something happens to you, then you're talking lawsuits and things. So there's artists who will, have legal forums and that will come up with ways that that can be done so that it's safe and practical. It's not a mainstream thing completely yet, but there are tattoo artists who will do that. Yes, I'm still coming to St. Louis. I was just talking about there because there's a water cremation facility there. So I'm going to get in touch with them and see if I can do a tour there while I am there as well. What is the first step I need to take in order to become an embalmer? Go shadow an embalmer and a funeral director and see what happens behind the scenes. And then look into schooling and see what you need to do for schooling. So Jules is asking about storage fees if you postpone a service for a couple weeks. And someone had asked me on last week's video also, like, why are services sometimes several weeks out? And she was asking specifically, she was noticing it within African-American funeral homes. She would notice in their obituaries that there were several weeks out. So it's not really a racial or a cultural thing to be delaying. However, you will find that some funeral homes are much more strict on delaying the funeral until payment is received. And so things are not even scheduled or in print or anywhere until the full payment is received. So you will find that is something that happens. I am also finding that people are trying to make death convenient for them by scheduling out several weeks for the funeral to when everybody can make it work for their schedule, rather than realizing death and the loss of someone is the priority. You need to stop your work and your life, and you need to focus on that person and burying them, and your Hawaiian vacation and your, sporting events and all these other things can wait. That person is dead, and they should be laid to rest, and they should be given that respect rather than everybody going on about their lives and that person just waiting and waiting and waiting in a cooler or in a prep room somewhere until everybody decides they can have time for death. It doesn't work that way, guys. But we are seeing that a lot more, that is happening. So Dylan, yes, it depends on, who you talk to, whether you can shadow or not. That's shadowing an embalmer is different than shadowing a funeral director. You're not going to get in the prep room and just get to watch an embalming just randomly off the street. It's sacred, there's laws, but talk to a funeral director. The more relationship you build, the more they're going to let you see. Have you ever been hurt while performing an embalming? I have had some needle pokes and things of that nature, but I've never been major hurt. I did crack the top of my foot with a casket once. It was on the beer, and when we lifted the beer over a door jamb, and it landed right on top of my foot. That hurt for many years, actually. Do you make a lot of money? I make a living doing what I do. And how long do I have to go to school? It's a 3-year program and a 1-year apprenticeship, and then state boards. You could keep a body in a cooler or freezer for years. Morgues do it all the time, like medical examiners and things. How do you deal with the smell of a badly decomposed body? So if someone is very, very advanced decomposition, we try and get them to the end stage very quickly. So from, the medical examiner, wherever they're at, if we're not doing a viewing or anything, if they're that bad, then they're going to go right into probably double sealed body bags. So one body bag and then inside another with special powders and things, and then into a casket, hopefully a sealing casket, or right to the crematory, and then, for disposition. Can a canine be taken care of in a funeral home for people? Well, we're not going to traditionally embalm in the funeral home, but we can have visitation and anything. We allow animals in the funeral home, you know, and in the living. So that's not really any change for if they're dead. Yeah, Vicks VapoRub doesn't really do much. A lot of people use like essential oils. I've heard have worked really good. I always just use chloroseptic spray in my nose afterwards. It kind of cauterizes and gets everything out of your nasal passage, because that's where it just sticks, is to the hairs in your nose and things. So when you pull it out, then it helps. No, it is not a law anywhere that a body has to be embalmed. Yes, if you're donating and you do a long bone donation, so like your leg bone from your hip down to your foot, you could use a PVC pipe. And some people do use a PVC pipe or a broomstick or things of that nature to replace the structure to the leg. What if you're a funeral director and not good at doing the makeup or doing the haircuts? What do you do for that? You would just hire it out. If you are, you know, humble enough to say, I need help, you would hire that part of it out to somebody who's not a funeral director and an assistant of some kind. No, Julie, it is not. So Julie's saying that she wanted to see her mom before she was cremated, and she was told she couldn't unless she brought clothes and had her makeup done first. No, you have every right. These are your loved ones. You have every right to see them before final disposition. So nobody can stop you from seeing your loved one if you want to. That's your right. That's your moment. That's something you get to do. Many funeral homes actually require it before cremation or burial, that you see your loved one again, to make sure that it's the right individual going to the crematory or going to be buried. A lot of places will bathe the person or place them in a hospital gown if they weren't in one. They'll close their eyes and close their mouth and brush their hair. Just very simple things so that you can do an identification view. I have never heard of a place requiring that you bring clothing and have their makeup done. That's called fear of the funeral director and you seeing somebody who's actually dead. And, you know, it's very sad because that's not something they can stop you from doing. If they say, no, you can't see your loved one, that's not legal, but they can, you know, that's their right as a funeral home, but you can just transfer to a different funeral home. It's pretty simple, actually. I have a bachelor's degree in mortuary science, but you do not need a bachelor's degree. You can do it with an associate's degree. Hey guys. Hey, Chris Kilborn. All right. How do schools get bodies to embalm? So local funeral homes will hire the schools to take care of the deceased that they have coming through their business. And so that's where a lot of mortuary schools will get the deceased that they care for. There are schools that don't have preparation rooms on site. So the students have to go to local funeral homes to do the embalming there with directors. So every school is a little different. And all of my mortuary school tour videos that I have on my channel, I talk about how that mortuary school receives deceased to care for, or how the students get their hands-on practical embalming. So check those out. You don't know what you don't know, JW. Exactly. See, it's such a great saying because it's so true, and it's like, it's too simple that you just don't even think about it. But yep. Someone asking about a crowning ceremony. So this is one thing that I have never seen done in person. I've watched videos of it. It's often an African-American thing from funerals where it's a ceremonial part of the funeral, and the person is crowned in the casket. And I don't know enough about it. It's one thing I want to delve into and to learn about so that I can pass on to you guys. So that's something that will down the road be coming at some point, is the crowning ceremony. Asking about an autopsied body when you do the 6-point injection. What if you're unable to find the right arteries if they are damaged or not tied off? So this happens often. We often say, who is doing the cutting today? Because you can tell when somebody was tired or a new person started because they will have cut too high. So then you can't find one of the arteries, or they've kind of destroyed a structure area where you need to be. So in the arms and in the legs, if the arteries are not up in the, like through the cavity that you can just see them to inject, then you just do an incision. So like in the arm, let's say if I couldn't, get to the right arteries here, I would just go maybe make a cut and go to the axillary here in the arm and inject there to go down the arm. Or you can always go down to the radial to then inject up into the arm. So you just keep moving until you find the right arteries and find somewhere that you can inject through. Oh, Taisha, that's awesome. You're going back to school at 41. Us 41-year-olds need to stick together, girl. I tell ya. Yes, we got some snow today, Kari. It kind of snuck in the last couple hours this morning. Someone was asking about trauma and if a family wants to do a viewing and then the funeral home is not able to do a reconstruction or vice versa. And they brought up someone had gotten hit by a train. So here's the thing is your imagination is more often than not going to be worse than the reality. I've buried individuals hit by trains that didn't have a scratch on them. It was all internal damage. But I've also buried people who were completely destroyed as human form. So, you have two sides of the coin. One thing to think about, and I know it's a weird analogy, but it's something I go back to. If you're driving down the highway, and maybe this doesn't happen in every state, but in Michigan, we have deer killed all the time on the sides of the road. While you're driving down the highway, you may see a deer that's been hit by a semi that is completely intact, maybe just their neck broken, but then you may also see deer that are completely just blown apart after they've been hit by a semi truck. And so just because they have one point of death doesn't mean they're always going to have the same result of their structure from an impact. So they could land on a number of different sides of, the viewing or viewability scale, I guess you could say. So there's not just one result, and your mind is almost always going to be worse than it probably is. How do you get the experience if a funeral home won't hire you until you graduate? So for online schooling, you are set up with a funeral home in your area, or at least general area, that is regulated by the school, that they have gone in and okayed that funeral home for where you're going to go and do your body work at. And so that's a connection for you with the funeral home that you can, maybe generate a relationship, and then maybe you can work with them and spend more time there and shadow and, volunteer on the weekends or work on the weekends or become part of the removal team or something. What made you choose the funeral profession? It began as a job when I was 16, and it just grew as an interest and just became second nature. And it just kind of fell in place over the years. And I just love it. That's just part of me. It's part of who I am. And I think that's the best type of profession, is something that you're comfortable doing and you love to do, and brings you some gratification along the way as well. So what's the worst body that you've ever had to reconstruct? I'll have to think about it and get back to you on which is the worst. You can request me in advance. I would have to work under somebody who is licensed in your state, though. Does a respirator truly make an embalming odorless? Definitely cuts down a lot of the odor. I'm surprised, I'll embalm a few times with my respirator, and then I'll walk into a prep room where someone's embalming just to give them a message or say something. And I'm shocked by how much odor there is. And I'm like, man, how are you doing this without anything on? Because it's almost overwhelming to me. And I embalmed without one for several years. And I don't know how I did it because the smell, ugh, it's just so heavy with, chemicals and fluids and things. And so you don't realize if you're wearing a respirator how much stuff is actually in the air. How do you keep the right shape of the stomach if you stuff with cotton? You have heavier and skinny people. Well, I don't stuff a stomach with cotton unless I can't fit the viscera back in, maybe after an autopsy person, but I don't use cotton to stuff a stomach. Is a pacemaker removed for burial? No, a pacemaker is only removed for cremation, and that's because they explode during the process. So they're removed for safety. Are you ever recognized for being on YouTube, or families ever request you because they know about you? Only one time, just randomly in public, did someone recognize me. And I was so embarrassed and overwhelmed, I think, by it because it caught me so off guard. If I'm at professional things like a funeral convention or something, usually it's students will recognize me because I do a lot with students. But usually funeral directors don't really say much to me. But yeah, I've never had a family really request me yet. I would imagine over time, there'll be somebody that walks in and says, oh my gosh, I watched your video on making arrangements this morning because I was Googling and wanted to know what I needed to prepare. And then I found your stuff and here you are. Like, I'm sure that day is going to come. At this point, I don't feel like I'm that well known by any means. So maybe as things grow and, people keep watching. So, future completely removal from the business. Could I see myself doing something in the future completely removed from the business I'm in? That's a really great question. I feel like right now, anything I would do would be some way connected to the funeral industry because it's where my great knowledge base is. It's what I've done for so long. It's what I'm trained in. It's what I'm schooled in. It's everything. So I would think that if I did something, it would be connected somehow to the business. I just, I can't think of anything right now that I might be doing, but who knows? So many doors have opened I never saw opening. So many things have happened I never saw happening. I never started, trying to educate with the thought of being on YouTube and doing a weekly YouTube thing, or I never thought of this. This was never on a radar. So it's always evolving, always changing what I'm doing. So who knows? Oh, whatever happened to the guy with the brain cancer? That's a great question. His name, he said, was Victor. It became too many times that there was too many questions. I don't want to say that there's not a man in California named Victor and that he's not dying of brain cancer. It's been, over 2 years now. And he still pops up and leaves comments on videos once in a while. So it makes me question whether if he had terminal brain cancer that he was going to kill himself because of it 2 years ago. You most likely, and your doctors authorize that you could kill yourself, which means they say that there is no cure, no way of coming out of it, and that you're that close to death anyway, that they would say, okay, here's your medicine to do death with dignity, then you should not be here 2 years from now. I know there's miracles. I get it, but there's too many questions to that story. And when I try to do videos and phone calls and too many things and too many reasons why not to, it just does make me question things. Makes me feel a little naive if I was catfished, but also I am a very, I try and see the good in people, and I'm a little naive when it comes to that, just because I try to see the good and do the good and everything. I'm a little rosy glasses some days. So yeah, I don't know. I try not to think about it. Exactly, JW. I don't know what I don't know. That is all my questions for today, though, guys. I am going to be back here in a few minutes. I'm going to do my live Skittles video here. It'll be a short one, but I will answer questions while I'm doing the Skittles video. So I'm going to log off. Catch me back if you want to join me eating my zombie Skittles. I tell you the things I do. So catch me back here in a few minutes, guys. Hey, Dark Helmet. Bump, bump. Good to see you. Welcome. Pregnant lady. Great. Thanks for flipping me off. Where'd you even, oh, you said hello. I'm answering questions. I can't say hello to every person. I'm sorry. There's too many, but thank you to you too. See you in a minute, guys.